Welcome into our Gridiron Game Day Preview Show. Alongside Ron Marvel, I'm Chris Mangrum, and we are your new announcer team for Gridiron Game Day this fall in 2025. Ron, looking forward to working with you this year. Why don't we start off on this preview show by having you tell us a little bit about your background in football?
Well, I was on staff with the Cyclones for a number of years from the mid-'90s to the mid-2000s, helped with offensive line, special teams, and then when my son got old enough, then I sort of shifted my attention to him and work within the Junior Cyclone Foundation, if you will, and also write sports articles for the Elizabethan Star, as well as have a full-time job at the East Tennessee Christian Home and Academy.
Of course, and we're really excited to be bringing you another new season of BTES Power 7 Gridiron Game Day. We've got new players on these teams, new stories. It's year 10 of Gridiron Game Day here for BTES Power 7. We've also got a big major change coming up this year that we'll tell you about a little bit later. But on today's show, we're going to be taking a deeper look at the teams that we're going to be covering throughout the season, including Tennessee High, Westridge, and Sullivan East. We'll hear from Coach Simmons, Coach Holt, and Coach Hilton today and give you some thoughts about some of these teams and what some of the expectations are for their upcoming season. Ron, we've spent the last several weeks talking to these coaches, learning about these players. Just tell me, how excited are you to get to the Friday night football?
Oh, yeah. Super excited. Because this is a quality production that comes out of BTES. And, the other thing is, Chris, we spend our time just like the regular fans do, right? We look at the schedule. We start checking off what we think are wins. We start checking off games in which we're underdogs, and then we look at games where are kind of toss-ups. Then we start talking about things like ceilings and floors and a team's chance to get into the playoffs, or win a conference, or host a playoff game. I can make a strong argument that each of these teams will be better this year. How that translates into wins and losses, I'm not sure. Some teams may have a smaller window when it comes to wins or losses. I guess the intrigue and what should really have fans excited this season is, how does all of that play out? I think it's going to be an exciting season.
Well, let's dig right into it. We cover three teams. We're going to start with Sullivan East. The Patriots had a rough year last year, just 1-9. Their only win coming against Volunteer by the score of 24-21. That was in a BTES game that was broadcasted here on the network. One of the issues for this Patriot team is all 9 of their losses last year came by 33 points or more. They're looking to get into some more competitive games. They were extremely young a year ago, but Coach Simmons has told us he really likes this group, and they're looking to bounce back. Some of their key losses include Shane Hinsdale, an offensive lineman who was a first-team All-Region player last year, as well as Elijah Briggs, another senior who graduated. He was an honorable mention All-Region. But, Ron, some key returners on this team, some of the key guys we're going to be watching are Peyton Lingerfelt, the junior quarterback who threw for over 2,000 yards last year, Blue Prophet, a senior receiver who had 55 catches and over 700 receiving yards, Bentley Key, a senior running back who will be back after missing most of the season after an injury last year, Devin Bowman and Hayden Jones, a couple wide receivers as well for this Patriots team. Ron, who sticks out to you from that list of key returners? Who are you going to be keeping an eye on early?
I know you're high on him, and I'm excited to see what he brings, and that's Bentley Key, because he blocks well, undersized but blocks well, and he brings that element of running to this offense that they really, really need.
You're talking about a Sullivan East team that likes to throw it a lot. Air raid has been thrown around. There might be some changes to the offense a little bit this year as well that we'll get into throughout the season. But one of the key storylines for this team was just how young they were. We mentioned it already. They've now are grown up. Most of their team is back, 9 starters back on both sides of the ball, including Peyton Lingerfelt. Coach Simmons gave us an inside look into his junior quarterback, Peyton Lingerfelt, and some of the growth that he's seen out of him.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we've seen so far is he's slowing down a little bit. He's not that freshman that's just there, or sophomore that's bullets are flying past him and that kind of thing. He's really starting to understand his progressions really well. Just slowing down and do what you're coached to do, and he's got a chance to be pretty good.
So, Ron, Peyton Lingerfelt's got 3 of his top targets back. We mentioned Bentley Key back in the backfield. What are you going to be watching closely for when East takes the ball on offense this season?
This raid and shoot, as it's so called now, It's going to be interesting. You know, when you look at the film on Lingerfeld from last year, when he had time, and sometimes even when he didn't have time, he looked good. I mean, he made some difficult throws. He's got weapons in Blue Prophet. He's intelligent. What impresses me about that kid so much is he knows when to break off those routes and come help his quarterback out. Devin Bowman, incredibly quick, fast, can take the top off of a defense. Hayden Jones, just a high IQ guy. We had a conversation with Stan Bedwell, and then you and I did a little bit of digging on this Ohio Valley Ironman team. And he spent his summer up there working with them. I can't tell you exactly what this offense is going to look like, but if it looks anything like that offense at all, they averaged 65 points, got in 3 games before the rest of the league decided to cancel on them because they were getting trounced so hard. You know, Coach talked about a 60-40 run split. I've already talked about Bentley Key. It's going to be interesting. Let me mention just one other thing, because I had a chance to see him at the scrimmage against Hampton. Valencia looks pretty good. And guys, sometimes there's nothing wrong with sort of checking up, getting your 3 points, and then playing some defense.
Yeah, Jose Valencia, a kicker for Sullivan East, who had a pretty solid year last year, made several field goals, I believe was perfect on his extra points as well. East is confident in their special teams game. Now, let's talk about the offensive line. You alluded to this, Ron. A lot of the success of an offense is, can you block up front? And this was a group in the offensive line that was young a year ago. Again, they've gotten a little older, but the success of this offense might very well depend on how well this offensive line group plays this season.
Well, as we talked about before, I'm coaching the offensive line now. These guys, the word that I've been using is nasty. I want to be nasty on contact, and I think we've been missing that for the last couple of years. And that's the big thing. They really are starting to understand our protection and our scheme, but you can't replace that nasty up front. I mean, that's where games are won and lost. It doesn't matter what offense or defense you run. So we put a big emphasis on that, and I feel really good about our core guys there.
I like what Coach Simmons has done, because when you start talking accountability, well, it starts with you and it ends with you, and he did the accountable thing, and that is he has basically placed himself over the offensive line. At that scrimmage, he spent the bulk of his time with that offensive line. And if we're being honest, we can talk about Lingerfeld, we can talk about Blue Prophet, we can talk about Bentley Key. The success of this team is going to hinge on this offensive line. And how much growth have they had? I know they've been in the weight room. They've talked about being square in their shoulders, which I think is going to be critical when we're talking about the type of gaps that this raid and shoot offense likes to have. I mean, another year, it can be huge, but they've got to clean up some issues. They've got to communicate better. And let me share one thing they can't have that I saw at the scrimmage. When they first lined up against Hampton, Bentley Key broke off a 25, 30-yard run. Everybody gets up, everybody's excited, should be, because it's something they were missing out of their offense last season. A flag gets called, the play comes back. As much as we just talked about what they can do, they cannot do that. They were one of the most penalized teams last year, averaging about 85 yards in penalties. They have got to keep that cleaned up. A little bit worried about their depth as well.
Well, if Sullivan East is going to be in more competitive games this season, a lot of the improvement needs to come on the defensive side of the ball after they gave up over 46 points per game on the defensive side last year. Here are some of the key returners for Coach Simmons' Patriot defense.
Yeah, defensively, a couple of those guys are crossover guys there with guys like Blue and Hayden and Devin. But that linebacking core, those guys are back with a year under their belt. Of course, losing Briggs hurts, but all those other guys got some reps there with Andrew Davidson, Karsten Toole in there, Jacob Sloan. Those are kind of some of our core guys there in the middle. And then our defensive line, just about everybody's returned as well.
As you heard from Coach Simmons, this is certainly a more experienced East defense this year, Ron. What might be some of the key improvements that they need to make this year to make those games a little more competitive?
I like what Coach Simmons says. Pursuit is our DNA. I agree with that. He's gone to that 3-5-3 switch, personnel based, probably more than anything else. But this is going to be a defense that's going to have to live off pursue and pressure. Pressure generates turnovers. You and I talked about last season, they had a minimal amount. They've got to generate turnovers. One of the things that Coach Simmons said that I really liked was embrace the fist fight. I like that. I like Coach Simmons a lot of stuff when we met with him that he said, including encouraging kids to go play multiple sports. Hey, listen, they've got an early test on their schedule. Johnson County last year had a kid by the name of Juan Tija. 1,200 yards in 8 games. They can run the football. And then we've got the game with Chucky Doak. I like what I see. Defensively line, you're talking about McDuffie and Davison and the Sloan twin and that linebacking core. Really, really like the response that we got from some of the D linemen because they understand that they cannot be selfish. But the key to their play defensively very well may be based on their cornerbacks. Their corners have got to be aggressive, they've got to generate turnovers, and they've got to show good judgment when the ball's up in the air.
With the season coming up, you can now see East's schedule here. They've got a big region run, 8 teams in their region with 7 of their 10 games coming against region opponents. You mentioned the Johnson County game already. What are some of the games you're interested in, maybe later in the year for East this year as they try to put together a better season?
It sort of starts there with Greenville and Elizabeth, and, because they've sort of been at the top. But I think we've actually are going to be covering what I think is going to be their game of the year, and it's going to come down to that Northview game. Northview doesn't have Mason Phillips anymore, walk-on at University of Tennessee. I really believe that game may be for playoff berth.
All right, that's an in-depth look at Sullivan East. That's not all you'll hear from us throughout the year. Be sure to tune in throughout the season for all of our contests, but specifically for Sullivan East as we break that down even further. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back to talk even more about Tennessee High coming up right after this. Welcome back. This is our preview show for Gridiron Game Day for the 2025 season. Year number 10 for Gridiron Game Day alongside Ron Marvel. I'm Chris Mangrum, your announcer team this season for BTES Power 7. We just dug in a little bit to Sullivan East, and now it's time to go up the road a bit and talk about the team in maroon and white, Tennessee High, who went 8-3 a year ago, ran off 6 straight wins to close out their season. They lost to Powell in the playoffs 34-7 in that first round, so did make the playoffs. That is a big step for this team. They'll try to return there this year, but they've got some key players they're going to have to replace. Trent Dowdell was the Region Offensive Player of the Year a year ago with over 1,300 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns. Micah Norton was the Region Defensive Player of the Year. Turner Elliott, first-team All-Region quarterback. Colson Maddox, first-team All-Region defensive lineman. And Ron, maybe most importantly, 4 of 5 offensive line starters. For a team that's looking to run the ball a lot, we're going to have our eyes on that early.
Yep. I think you mentioned some names there that were a big part of this offense and defense. Dowdell last season, 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns, and then Micah Norton, the leadership that he brought. I'm going to mention another name, too, of someone that Tennessee High lost, and that's their kicker, Arrington. Mm-hmm. That's going to take some work to try to get, because he was ranked number 4 in the state of Tennessee in the Coles kicking selection. So that's not going to be an easy loss for them either.
Yeah. Recently got to talk to Coach Holt. He's told us that he's got 2 kickers that he kind of feels comfortable with. They're kind of battling it out right now. That is something we'll keep an eye on, as that'll be another replacement there for Tennessee High. Some of the key returners, some of the players back that we're looking out for. Elijah Plumbar, who's a junior running back. He was the Region Underclassman of the Year a year ago with over 800 rushing yards and 7 total touchdowns. Had 2 interceptions on defense as well. He is a really exciting player, but We're told that he may not be back for the first couple of games of the season as he's nursing an injury from a year ago. Khalil Honaker, a senior running back and defensive lineman. Watch out for number 2 on the defensive line for Tennessee High this year. And Preston Fagans, a senior linebacker who's Mr. Do-It-All. You'll see him on offense at H-back. He was first-team All-Region. This is the leading tackler on this team. Which of those guys sticks out to you, Ron?
I think Preston Fagans, for one, he just seems like he has a knack to be at the right spot at the right time. He has a real nose for the football, and I think that served Tennessee High well.
Yeah, if you see number 44 coming through the gap as a running back, you better look out because he's looking to lay a lick on you. All right, let's talk more about replacing Trent Dowdell. Anytime you're replacing the Region Offensive Player of the Year, that is a tough test, but obviously with Elijah Plumbar down with injury as well, it's going to be a little tougher. Here's what Coach Holt had to say about some of those running backs.
Bulk, I don't think we'll have another 180 carry back, but we've got a great stable of backs, from senior down. We feel good about some of the sophomores and even some of the freshmen that are here. Plumbar will be back. He'll be pretty healthy. We got him. Carter Smith will carry the ball some. Cooper Brewer will carry some ball. Khalil will carry the ball. It'll be more stable-ish like it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We didn't even go into last year thinking Trent would be a 180 carry guy. It just happened. As the game went on, he got stronger and stronger and really built, some stamina and made it hard to tackle as the game came along.
Ron, we heard several names there from Coach Holt. He mentioned Elijah Plumbar, of course, Carter Smith, Cooper Brewer, Khalil Honaker. What are you looking forward to seeing about this stable of backs here at Tennessee High?
Running back by committee for a while until Plumbar gets back. And, I understand that. I like the combination, if you were to ask me today, of Brewer and Smith. You've got that power. If you had the opportunity, which I know you did, to read that article in Johnson City Press, he's really biting at the bit right now to contribute offensively. I like what Smith does. It's sort of almost a thunder and lightning kind of combination right there. Quick cuts, reads blocks well, and then all of a sudden you mix in Honaker and Stoneacre and Schaefer. Could see some carries. And by the way, a little off topic, but don't forget, they've got a really good wide receiving core too, and Hoggerod and Price and Music. And if I was going to have an offense that I was going to play that was running back by committee, it would probably be the pro set. And to Tennessee High's credit, they run the pro set very well, and I think it will serve them well.
Yeah, at the quarterback position, Tennessee High will have senior Jack Richardson and sophomore Knox Kazee. Coach Holt has told us that both of those players are expected to play on that offense, but we are going to have our eyes on that running back situation. We know that Plumbar is an excellent player. When he gets back, he's going to add a super boost to this offense. It'll be interesting to see how they handle things early without their underclassmen of the year from a year ago. Now, we've talked about how much this team loves to run the football, but they are replacing those 4 offensive linemen up front. Just one starter back, Ron, and that's something we'll be keeping an eye on early. Here's what Coach Holt had to say about the big boys up front.
I think this is the biggest we've been up front in a long time. It's also probably the youngest we've been up front in a long time. So it's really going to come down to how quick they can really all come together and get on the same page. But, we've been doing helmets since the end of spring ball, so we feel really good about what they've done so far without making contact. So, tomorrow, Friday, that's when we start to get to hit a little bit, so we'll get to find some things out. But, yeah, there's some youth up there, a little bit of green that I'm not going to say we're worried about it, we're just paying close attention to it. We got a whole section in the locker room we call Fat Alley. That's where all the linemen live, is on Fat Alley right there, and they embrace it. Coach Pendleton and Coach McMurray and even Coach Taylor, the OC's done a good job of making sure those guys understand just how important that is here, Defensively, Coach Powers up front, he's rotated. I think yesterday we rotated 12 guys through up front defensively, and that's huge. We've never been able to do that before, so we're super excited about that. We simplify things as much as we can so as many people can play. And then make scheme inside of a box so it ultimately creates depth for us.
Coach obviously loves his depth on the defensive line. He likes several of the new players on this offensive line, Ron, even if they don't have a lot of experience. As a former lineman yourself, what are you going to be watching early as this new group gels together?
Fat Alley, I think, is an accurate description. I mean, you're talking about guys across the board that are in that 6'2", 6'4" range, and each one of them weighing at least 250 pounds. And by all accounts, those are actually numbers from last season, not this season, and they've gotten bigger. I look at Kai Allison as being the leader of that line. I like him. He's got good hands. Mechanically, he's sound. You put some more in at center. I know he's worked very hard to make sure. Coach Holt talked to us about they've got to be clean on their snaps. I know he's worked very hard. He's been diligent to clean that up. Then you add in this combination of Cobain, Dickerson, Maryland, Erasmo, Lobin probably in there somewhere. I think tackle play, because Tennessee High likes to run the football and they like to run on the edges. I think tackle play is going to be huge. So we're going to be looking at Kai Allison. I think last year he was in the tackle spot. Does he move into the guard? They keep him at the tackle spot. I like this offensive line for Tennessee High.
We'll be keeping our eyes on that offensive line group as they look to gel here early in the season. And something they can lean on early is their defense. As a year ago, this was a group that gave up 19.5 points per game, less than 20 points per game, only allowed 20 or more points in 3 games this season, or last season for the Vikings. Here are some of those key guys to watch for on the defensive side of the ball for the Vikings.
You know, Khalil, Honaker, Cooper Brewer will be up there. We feel really good about Isaac Stevens inside right there. Preston Fagans has started since he was a freshman. You know, he's played more defense the past 2 years than he did as a freshman and sophomore, but he'll be one of those linebackers. And then some youth in there at linebacker with Alex Carey. Frank Reed played a lot last year for us. The back end is probably where we're the most experienced. You know, we just had to really replace one corner from last year. But, you know, the great thing about what we do defensively is that whole back end, they can play any spot. You know, so if you know one, you basically know the others. And that, again, helps us build depth by being as simple as we possibly can. So across the board, Barron will be out there, Riley Price will be out there, Dane will be out there, Bo Utzman will be out there, Max Holt will be out there. And then we've still got some good backups that can fill any of those spots between Brenton Baker, Kana Stallnaker, Knox Kazee even. So we feel really good about the back end especially, and just the depth overall defensively.
All right, Coach listed a lot of names there on that strong defense, as we've already talked about. He seems that he loves the depth that he has. And early in the season, we talked about some of the offensive issues that this team has in terms of replacing some production. How important is it, Ron, early for the defense to maybe set the tone for this Viking team and lean on them?
I think it's real important. You know, when you talk the beginning of the year, typically defense is in front of offense anyway, because offense just works so much around timing. Tennessee High is going to be going to this 4-eye defense. I like that. They're going to have an inside guy on the B gap. I don't know who that guy is going to be. Is it going to be Allison? Could it be Erasmo? I feel like they probably want to keep Honaker on the outside because he disrupts from there. But guys, there's a lot of quality folks on this defense. I mean, the motor on Fegans, all-region guy. Seems like he just is in the right spot a lot of the time. Strong secondary with a free safety rover, that's I really like. Who steps up at the other cornerback? You know, until Plumbar gets back. But the guy that I'm really looking forward to watching is Riley Price. 5'10", 170 pounds, plays much bigger than that. Good against the run. Fights off blocks really well, high IQ, and very versatile. And I love a good hybrid guy that can disguise what he's doing, and Price does that well.
Impact players at all levels of the defense for Tennessee High. You mentioned Honaker up front, Fagans in the middle at linebacker, and then several upperclassmen, including Riley Price back there on the back end. Tennessee High's defense is looking to continue to be dominant this season, and they might need to be, Ron, as the schedule for Tennessee High, as always, is tough in Region 5, and including some non-conference games against some Class 6 teams. So which of those games stick out to you on this Tennessee High schedule as they try to not only return to the playoffs, but host a home playoff game this year?
You know, tough schedule to begin the season off. We talked about West Ridge, Elizabeth, and Science Hill. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I'm really, really looking forward to a game that we're covering, and that is that game against Morristown West. That very well might be for the conference championship. Let me just add one more thing. As you well know, for the past several seasons, I've actually worked on the broadcast team for Sevier County, the Smoky Bears. This defense for the Vikings has been built to stop the run, and I think it's going to serve them very well. The question I have from an X's and O's point of view is when you have to make that road trip down to Sevier County against the Cooper Newman team, how do you adjust from that point of view? And this is a team that has lots of weapons. You don't go to any game saying we're going to give this game up to keep our place in the conference. You don't do that. So how they adjust, I'm going to find that really interesting.
Tennessee High looking to host a home playoff game this year. That's their stated goal. We've heard it multiple times, and they will have to do that against a very tough schedule coming up this year. So that's an inside look at the Vikings. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dig even deeper on the West Ridge Wolves right after this.
You know what I love seeing on Friday nights? When that other team's like this. Why? We broke their wheel because we're tougher. We win so many games that way. You don't do that here. You understand me? We don't leave. We don't quit. Too much of it today. Get a drink, get down there. It better be better in the second half. Let's go.
Welcome back to our Gridiron Game Day Preview Show. Alongside Ron Marvel, I'm Chris Mangrum. Happy to be bringing you some in-depth looks at these three teams here for Gridiron Game Day in our 10th season. With that kicking off August 22nd at West Ridge. Ron, Tennessee High will travel down I-81 to take on the Wolves. Last year, West Ridge went 5-5. They finished at 500 for the second straight season after starting 2-0. Finished the year with a good win against Morristown East 38-27, but they didn't make the playoffs last year, and they're looking to return to the playoffs this season. Now, some of the key players they are looking to replace: Trey Frazier, first-team All-Region quarterback, a 3-year starter. He's now at Tusculum. He had 23 total touchdowns a season ago. Trent Tatum, a first-team All-Region player, a former All-State offensive lineman, had 4 total touchdowns a year ago, but a lot of his impact came on the line. Dylan Bannon, honorable mention All-Region, had nearly 400 yards receiving, and Gabe Music, a really talented linebacker who was also honorable mention, had 77 tackles a year ago. Now, some of the key returners for this West Ridge team: Ethan Amix, a senior running back who was first-team All-Region a year ago, big, strong guy, had over 100 carries a year ago and 7 touchdowns. Caleb Mabb, who's an electric and explosive player who can score anytime he touches the ball, 9 touchdowns a year ago, including 2 of those on a kickoff return. Sam Perry, a senior linebacker who was first-team All-Region, the leader of this West Ridge defense. And Hayden Music on the edge, first-team All-Region linebacker who had 15 tackles for loss last year. He lives in the backfield. Some really talented football players on this team, Ron. Who sticks out to you on this returning group?
You know, I think Amix, of course, we're going to talk about him some more, but just how strong he is and all that he brings to the table. I'm looking forward to watching him play.
The number one thing going into a season is everybody's eyes are on that quarterback position. And for West Ridge, you're losing a 3-year starter. And boy, that can be difficult to replace production from a guy who's been in that spot for 3 straight seasons, especially who's been as productive as Trey Frazier has been. And for West Ridge, it's a position battle this year. Coach Hilton recently got with us and told us about some of the players that are vying for that starting job.
We do. We got a good competition going on. Justice Hilton and Isaac McGee are 2 of the guys that are in there competing for the slot. Really like their mental approach up to this point. Both of them unselfish kids. Both know they're going to play somewhere, whether they're the quarterback or not. So we'll have to get them on the field. But they've approached it as trying to help each other, push each other, and understand it's competition. But when the decision's made, I know they'll support each other.
So at this point in camp, we don't yet know who's going to get that first snap at quarterback. Could be one of a couple individuals, including Justice Hilton, who is the son of head coach Justin Hilton. Ron, I'm just going to ask you straight up, how do you replace the production of Trey Frazier?
You don't. And more importantly, you don't try. You know, it's an interesting battle between Hilton and McGee. They sort of mirror each other. They do a lot of the same things. You have a real feeling like you're going to see both of them on the field at the same time at points. A 2-quarterback system can work. It's worked at West Ridge before. It can work again. If you remember Reiner and Bergeron when they were there and finished the season 8-2 and knocked off a very good Cleveland team in the process. You know, there's some things I think they can do that will help both those quarterbacks. The option runs, I think, will help them. Both quarterbacks have strong arms. Trust them. Use the weapons that are around them to make themselves better. Let me add one more thing, almost on a personal note. The hardest kid on the field to coach is your own. I've been down that road with 2 kids of my own, one that went to go play college. You're getting ready to go down that road some too. Yours is very young, but you're going to find out. It's difficult sometimes to be patient with your own. So we'll see how all that plays out as well.
You mentioned some of the playmakers on this offense, and I'll tell you, there could be a worse situation for Westridge, and that would be trying to find a new quarterback, but also not having any playmakers or offensive line help up front. But that is not the case for this Westridge team as they return 2 key offensive playmakers in Ethan Amix and Caleb Mabb. Here's what Coach Hilton had to say about those 2.
Hey, listen, Amix is a kid, he's probably, 6'1", 195, benches 340, squats a ton. I mean, you look at him, he fits the bill in a uniform. He looks good. He needs to be the first one off the bus. Well, he's going to get a lot of carries. He's been carrying it since he was a sophomore, you know. So, again, that's what I'm talking about. All these young pups that were playing last year have kind of grown and hopefully can support these young kids coming in at quarterback. He does. He's one of the few that does. He plays safety and receiver, returned kicks. I think he returned 2 or 3 kicks for touchdowns last year during the season. Does an excellent job at receiver. You see him in the backfield some too, so we're going to use him in different roles.
Ron, we're expecting this Westridge offense to give the ball to Ethan Amix and Caleb Mapp a lot. Even heard we may see Mabb in the backfield. They're going to get creative in how they try to get these guys the ball. What makes these 2 so special, in your opinion?
Let's start with Amix. You know, the kid's so strong, 345 pounds. When I was an offensive lineman, I didn't even put up that kind of weight. And this kid's got long arms. I'm going to tell you, that's crazy strong. That's John Cena kind of crazy strong. You got to be impressed. And when you see him run, it's like he's being shot out of a cannon. He's got purpose. And one of the questions that we asked him during media day, and you probably remember this, is I asked him, is there a point in time you know, when you kind of think about stepping out of bounds and maybe saving some wear and tear on your body, and you could tell it almost just like went against his set of beliefs when I asked that question. Then on the other side, you've got Caleb Mabb, and I think it's so important for Westridge to get him involved in multiple ways because he does so much very well. He's a big-time threat in the return game. We didn't even talk about that. He can take the top off. He high points the ball really, really well, has good body control, and he has worked really, really hard on reading coverages. I just think both those guys are just students of the game, and both those guys live in the gym, and it shows.
I know we mentioned it already, but also that offensive line coming back in front of Justice Hilton or McGee, whichever quarterback we see at points, that's going to be a real strength of this offense. They've got something to work with. It's not just throwing them to the wolves. See what I did there,
Yeah,
Ron?
I did see what you did there.
All right, let's talk about that Westridge defense. Talk about experience. They've got some real key players coming back. When you play in Region 6, in Class 6, you're going to face a lot of talented offenses. And luckily for Westridge, they've got some very talented players. Coach Hilton told us more about that.
We're an odd front, but we end up walking down into an even front quite a bit. Sam Perry, all-conference linebackers, coming back. He's the one that kind of led the charge last year. Beside him, Nathan Arnold, and then you got Hayden Music at one outside linebacker. Sophomore Jace Arwood stepping into outside linebacker. He was our long snapper as a freshman last year and played a little bit. And then, of course, we talked about the guys in front with Mims, Duke, and then we'll roll Ronnie Smith and Cal Tatum in there. Caleb Mabb be our free safety. Orlando Mack is a sophomore, 6'3", 185, can run. He was hurt last year. He would have been a starter at linebacker last year as a freshman. Happy to have him back. And then at corner, it's going to be by committee. We feel like we've got 5 or 6 guys that can roll in. We'll probably start with Jackson Walsh and Brody Fields, but Dayton Brown will roll in there. Price will roll in there. Braden Lawson will roll in there. So we feel good about our defensive backfield.
You heard from Coach some of the key players for this Westridge defense. Sam Perry at the linebacker spot, Hayden Music up on the defensive line, Caleb Mabb back patrolling in the backfield, or in the secondary, I should say. Ron, what are you expecting to see out of this defense for Westridge this season?
Very good defense. You've already talked about the all-conference player in Sam Perry, who just angles so well, and you toss in Hayden Music, you mentioned outstanding stat right there, 15 tackles for loss. Now, I want you to add in Nathan Arnold, who is just a thumper. He's one of those guys, when he hits you, your teeth hurt. But one of the things I really picked up on in talking to them during media day was the defensive line, and Tanner Mims and Caden Duke and Tatum. And those guys just get it. I mean, they understand what their role is, and that sometimes they have to give themselves up to make the linebacking core look better. For a defensive line, unselfish play goes a very long way. They've also got good depth in the secondary with Walsh and Fields and Tossin Mab. There's a lot to like about this defense. Let me add one more name. And I know you know where you're going because I'm so high on this kid. I love Orlando Mack. He looks like a college player already. 6'3", 200 pounds. Think about Troy Polamalu. Think about Budda Baker. I love that hybrid safety that will come up and hit somebody, because when you have that person, and he's going to be a good one, they can disguise a lot of what they do on defense, and then you have to start accounting for that type of player. He's got the tools, he's got the speed. We'll see how this, as he's coming back from injury, we'll see how this season works out for Orlando Mack.
Not only that, Ron, but Orlando Mack, just a sophomore. And did not get to play much last year. Yep. He would have made a big difference, even probably in his freshman year for this Westridge team a year ago. And hopefully he's back and healthy and ready to help this Wolves defense this season as they go up against some very talented teams. Now, the Westridge schedule is always difficult. As we mentioned, they are in Class 6, and only 5 teams in their region this year, which means 4 teams go to the playoffs. Only one of those teams is getting left at home. As Coach Hilton told us earlier, you'd hate to be that one team that's left at home. They're trying to get back to the playoffs again this year after missing a year ago. What are your thoughts on this Westridge schedule?
I think they're hungry. I think you just hit on it just a moment ago, that they really, really want to go back, that they want to be there. They start off with the Tennessee High game, which we're covering, and then, further down their schedule, they had it Elizabeth, and boy, that's a tough add on the schedule. But there's challenges up and down on this schedule, but as we talked about earlier in the season, they're a team that I think will be improved. How that translates into wins and losses, we'll just have to wait and see.
Scheduling is difficult, and for Coach Hilton, with only 4 region games, had to find 6 non-conference games, and there's 2 schools of thought. You can either go out and schedule easy games and try to pad your wins, or you can schedule tough games to try to prepare yourself for the games that matter in your region: Dobbins-Bennett, Science Hill, Morristown East, and Jefferson County. And Coach Hilton did the latter. He decided to schedule tough to try to prepare his team for those region games coming up. So that's a look at Westridge. We've now outlined all 3 of our teams here in the show, but we will be back after a short break to wrap up, take a look at our BTES schedule, and tell you more about what you can expect from Gridiron Game Day this season.
3, 4, 3.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Game Day Preview Show. Looking forward to covering 10 games this year on BTES Power 7. Ron Marvel here with me. I'm Chris Mangrum. We are looking forward to bringing you those games this season. Ron, I know we've talked about each of the team's schedules a little bit, but now let's get into our broadcast schedule, the games that we'll be covering here on BTES Power 7 this season. What are some of the games that are most interesting to you?
Oh, I think this is a quality schedule. I'm excited. I mean, week after week we've got games, and we've sort of got some questions that need to be answered. We can start with the very first game that we have this season between Tennessee High and Westridge, 2 teams that are looking to get off to fast starts. Then you can talk about Sullivan East and Chucky Doak. I know you read the article. I sent it to you today. Blue Prophet kind of talks about the improvement that he's wanting to see out of his team this season, talks about 4 wins. I think that's a realistic projection for them. You would think, if that's going to be the case, that Chucky Doak's going to have to be one of those teams they take down. You got a measuring stick for Tennessee High in week 3. against Science Hill, and it just keeps going on and on. Tennessee High against Crockett should be a really good game. I mean, I can just keep doing this. I've not even talked about Morristown West or Tennessee High, nor have I really talked or gone into any kind of detail about Northview at East, which I really think in essence could be a playoff game in itself to see who gets into the playoffs. There's a lot to be excited about on our schedule this year.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited about with this schedule is all the playoff games at the end of the season that could determine seeding and playoff berths and that kind of thing. But also there's some fun regional games that we're going to get to do, including that Tennessee High at Westridge game in Week 1. Of course, we're excited about that first one coming up on August 22nd. But you've also got a non-region game that we're going to do on September 26th, Abingdon at Tennessee High. We get a little crossover with a Tennessee-Virginia action there to see how Tennessee High stacks up against one of the better teams in Southwest Virginia. So, look, each one of these games is going to be so compelling, have some interesting stories, and we're looking forward to bringing you those stories all throughout the season on Gridiron Game Day, powered by BTES Power 7. Ron, we've talked to these coaches a lot, and we hear a lot of the same things starting to come out of their mouths as that tends to happen. But, and as we've broken down here, we've heard from Coach Holt at Tennessee High. They want to get back to the playoffs. They want to host that home playoff game. We've heard from Coach Hilton at Westridge. They missed the playoffs last year. They're looking to get back. I believe I heard Coach Hilton's only missed the playoffs 2 seasons in his entire coaching career. And Sullivan East is looking to improve off that 1-win season and try to sneak into the playoffs maybe as one of the final seeds. But it seems like each of our teams, and I believe you said this earlier, have a real shot at the playoffs if things go well this year.
I would be surprised if 2 out of 3 don't make it, and a real chance that all 3 make it this season.
Well, not just that, but it's a year of new here on Gridiron Game Day for BTES Power 7. We've mentioned that Ron and I are the new broadcasting team. We're looking forward to that. But one of the most exciting announcements that we have for you this year for Gridiron Game Day is that all of the games will be broadcast live on YouTube. In previous years, they've kind of played around with YouTube a little bit, but this year each game streamed live on YouTube. And of course, you can also watch, if you're a BTES customer, on channel 7 or 207 in HD there on the 207 channel. But we're very excited to be able to get these games on YouTube this year. That means that more eyes might be on our product this year, and it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. If you can find YouTube, you can find our broadcasts.
And the exciting thing here at Power 7 is just the quality product that gets put out. When you look at some of the videos from last year, and some of the aerial shots in particular, and some of the close-ups, just such quality. So on our end, from a broadcasting point of view, I know you and I are excited to be working with that level of quality.
Oh yeah, we are very excited for August 22 to get here. In case you miss one of our YouTube games, you can always go back and catch it on YouTube, or if you'd like to own that product, you can scan a QR code on the BTES website to download those games. That'll be available towards the end of the season, but you have the ability to check that out later on this season. So looking forward to a great year working with you, Ron, for the first time, and this BTES product is going to be fantastic. And our YouTube channel is at BTES Videos, so be sure to go ahead right now, whatever you're doing, visit YouTube. You can go to @BTES Videos, subscribe so you don't miss any of our content on YouTube. It's not just games there as well. Be sure to check out all the programming for Power 7 on the BTES YouTube channel, and be sure to tune in with us, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Channel 7 or 207. We'll be there with you every step of the way. So thanks again for tuning in to the Gridiron Game Day Preview Show for Sullivan East, Tennessee High, and Westridge. And be sure to join us on August 22nd as we kick off the season with Tennessee High on the road at Westridge.